Want help to grow your business? Download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi and welcome to Communication in Crisis. My name is Kylie Worry, author, speaker and trainer. Now today we are speaking about how to deal with the scars from a crisis. So basically after you've been through some type of communication crisis, you've got a wound of some kind, you've gone through some treatment and healing, and the next part is that scar. And we all have scars after a crisis. They can be physical, but they can be emotional as well. And the important thing is to recognise them. So what is a scar? A scar is a sign of impact. It's a sign that something's happened. It's also a sign of healing. Now, something that's really interesting about scars is that each of us can view them in different ways. We can see them as something ugly and horrible, and a deformity, for example, but we can also see them as like a battle scar, something we're proud of, a story that we can tell. I remember my son one time meeting a former Wallaby rugby union player, and this guy had the most amazing lightning bolt scar on his forearm. And my son was 7 years old and big-eyed, and he's like, wow, what happened to your arm? Straight away, this guy, as quick as anything, said, I was bitten by a shark. Now my son nearly died. He was so excited to hear this story. Truth was, it actually wasn't a shark attack. It was when he'd actually coat-hangered someone in a tackle, and his radius and ulnar had just come straight through the skin. Fractured his arm in a second. So it's still a pretty cool story, but I'll leave it up to you which one's cooler, the coat hanger or the shark bite. But he wore his scar as a badge of honour. He saw it as a way of telling a story, a way of relating to people. So today what we'll be talking about is what scars are and how they affect you. Because each DNA style sees scars differently, and they can affect how you deal with the crisis and how you respond, heal and move forward based on how you're viewing that scar. So in terms of scars and coming through a trauma, attitude is absolutely everything. And I want to share with you an example that I think just shows this beautifully. This amazing woman on screen is a lady called Turia Pitt. Now, she's a woman who was a long-distance runner, and in 2011, she was involved in an awful incident where her and another woman were almost killed by bushfires. They were doing a 100-kilometre running race, and before anyone knew it, they were caught up in the flames, and they were both nearly killed. Now, I want to show you a picture of Turia today. She's a very different person. Basically, there's not very much of her that isn't scarred. It's actually a miracle that she's even alive. But what I want you to get from this is to understand that the way she views her scars is critical. She looks at herself from the inside out. She sees her strengths, her values, what she brings to the table as a whole human. She sees it from the inside out, not from the outside. Now, I want you to think about a day where, for example, you might have just been having a bad hair day. Or maybe remember back to your teenage years when you had a great big pimple on your face and you were like, I can't leave the house, I look like a mutant. Then look at this woman. Look at the scars she has. Now, she can't even hide them. There's no way that she can actually leave the home without someone noticing her and going, wow, she's got lots of scars. Now, she's had almost $3 million worth of surgery to get to the stage she's at now. She's been through so much pain and agony that it's probably hard for most of us to even understand what she's been through. But her attitude is so unbelievable. So I want you to think about it from your perspective, from any scars that you might have. Are you seeing yourself as a victim or as a victor? It's a really, really important question to ask yourself. Now, poor communication, let's face it, it can scar us. Things can go wrong and we can be left in the middle of a crisis because either someone said something that offended us or someone didn't say something that was critical and we were left holding a problem. Maybe you've had a relationship that's failed. Maybe you stepped out and took a big risk and your business failed. Now, that happens for a large percentage of small business owners in Australia. And these can leave us scarred. But it's what are we doing with them? You see, the importance and significance of a scar is that it tells a story. But what type of story is it telling you? Is it telling you of victory, of learning, of knowledge, of wisdom? Or is it telling you that you failed, that you stuffed up, that you got it wrong, and when you look at it, that's all you can see. Now, I had a bit of a revelation with scars a little while ago. In 2013, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I ended up having to have a double mastectomy to get through that. Now, for a long time, I really struggled with the scars across my chest. They're quite huge, and I remember thinking that I was less than, that I was not who I was before, and that I would be judged because of those scars. But unlike Cheria, when I left home, no one knew. It's only me that knows. It's only the story that I tell myself that matters. So what I decided to do, and the revelation that I had, was that my scars are actually a sign of strength for me. The learning that I got after going through my cancer diagnosis was that I wasn't managing my stress and I wasn't looking after myself. I was all work and no play. And so these scars remind me that I had to change something, that my life was about more than what I achieved, what results I got. It wasn't just about kicking goals at the sake of my own health. There was so much more that I could be celebrating and achieving. So basically my scars tell me now that I'm free, that I'm first of all free of cancer, and that I got through that battle and I'm standing on the other side. So I want you to think about the scars that you have, whether they're emotional or physical. What's the story that you're telling yourself? Because that is critical in terms of you moving forward and getting hold of your strengths and gaining that wisdom. Now, your words have power, and I want you to know that you need to use them wisely. Now, think of it in the context of your self-talk. Each of us has this continual tape playing in our head 24/7. Our self-talk is always happening. And the interesting thing is that most of us aren't even aware that it's running. But research has shown that the average person has between 70 and 90,000 thoughts every single day. Now that might just make you exhausted thinking about it. I know on certain days it exhausts me. But 70 to 90,000 thoughts. And research also shows that 95% of those are negative and based in the past. Now, some of us might be thinking about the good old days, but again, if we're romancing something that happened 10 or 15 years ago, we're not living in the moment and exerting our power where we have it, which is right now. We're stuck back in a place that no longer has any meaning in our lives. The best thing we can do with the past is actually learn from it and move on. So you need to hear your self-talk. What is it actually saying to you? Is it saying helpful, encouraging things? Or is it saying unhelpful, discouraging things? Now, in a crisis, that's a critical time when we need to have our self-talk on our side. But that's the time when most of us will be struggling to actually do what we need to do because our self-talk is just at us, telling us that we're not going to make it. So the first step in understanding that your words have power is raising that awareness. What are you actually saying to yourself? What are you saying about that failed relationship? Are you saying that, oh, it's going to happen again? Or are you saying, well, that didn't work. What will work next time? I want you to think about another great example, Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb. Do you know that he failed 10,000 times before he got that right? Now, I don't know about you, but that's a lot of failures. Now, imagine if he got stuck in that and told himself that it just wasn't worth trying again. We wouldn't have the amazing invention that he gave us. He didn't let his self-talk stop him, or he controlled it in a way that meant that he was encouraging himself to move forward. His failures didn't leave a scar that stopped him. Now, a great way to look at a scar is that it's a reminder that you were stronger than whatever it was that tried to hurt you. You made it. You got through. A bit like the wallaby that we met. His scar was a great story. It showed that he had triumphed. Now, a scar can also show your resilience. Now, resilience is something that tells us how well we cope. It's something that teaches us about our strength. Resilience is bouncing back after something has knocked us over. It's that willingness to get up and try again. Now, at the centre of resilience is a hopefulness for the future, an optimism that things will get better. And resilience relies on you using your strengths to cope. I want you to think about a time, for example, in your business where you've got to do something new. Maybe there's a new product line or there's a new technology that you're implementing. And imagine how you'd go at getting through that struggle if your self-talk was saying to you, there's no way, you can't learn this. Don't be ridiculous, it's too hard. You'll never make it. How motivating is that? Imagine how different it would be if you can actually have your self-talk on your side and be saying things to yourself like, you can do this. Even if you don't know what you're doing, you can ask for help. And how amazing is it going to be when we get this in place and we're moving forward? You see, self-talk defines our success. So you need to understand what yours is saying to you, and then you need to change it if it's actually not helpful. What do you see in the centre of the screen here? Now, whenever I do this in a training workshop or when I'm speaking to groups, everyone puts their hand up and says straight away, a blue dot, like they're going to get a tick of approval. But really, we focus on that one little tiny piece of real estate in the middle of the screen. No one has ever said to me, oh, that amazing white space. We don't focus on that. We focus on the one little detail. And have you noticed that when things go wrong, that's what we can get stuck on? A great example is what happens in the media. How many times do they tell a bad luck story versus a good luck story? We love the drama. We love the chaos. We love the crisis. But when we're in it, we need to look at things from a different perspective. We need to be able to look at the problem and go, okay, that's there, but what have I got in my hands? What communication strengths have I got to help me get through this? When you do that, you will get through the crisis and you'll have an amazing story to tell about your trauma and your scars rather than one of failure. Today we're looking at the communication DNA styles and how they cope with scars, and I want to start with the powerful communicator. Now, remembering these guys are about 10% of the population. They're strong, they're driven, they're direct, they're competitive. They love to solve problems and challenges. And because they're so driven, they can probably find themselves in crisis quite frequently because they just get out there and have a go. Now, these guys love to be in positions of power, love to be in positions where they can make a decision. That's where their strengths are. Now, we've looked at this in a lot of detail up to now, but I just want to recap for you. The powerful communicator, illustrated quite nicely by Judge Judy. What we notice about these guys is that they're direct, pushy, and aggressive. That they want results and they need control. Now, think about a crisis. The one thing we are guaranteed not to have is control. The only thing we can control is our response to the crisis. And it takes a very wise person to be able to respond to a crisis with maturity, with an open mind, and with calm. Now, in a crisis, especially if you're dealing with a powerful communicator who's wounded, hasn't treated their wound properly, and they're scarred in a negative way, if they're not on that cycle of learning, growth, and wisdom, then they can come across as very angry to the point where they push people away, and they look around and there's no one with them. They can get to the point where they can actually tell themselves, I'm better off doing it on my own.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.